Every night, a young black girl slept on the same park bench, alone, cold and unnoticed. But when an arrogant millionaire, known for his pride and wealth, discovered the heartbreaking reason behind her pain, it shattered his ego and changed his life forever. What began as pity became redemption. In the middle of a bustling city, surrounded by bright lights and constant noise, a small, worn-out park remained the only quiet corner left. Among the rustling leaves and creaking benches, a little black girl named Amara lay curled up every night under a thin blanket. She was only 11 years old, but life had already shown her the cruelty of the world. People passed her every day, joggers, businessmen, couples. Some looked away, others whispered, but no one stopped. Amara wasn't begging for money. She wasn't asking for food. She just wanted to sleep safely, to dream of the home she once had. Months ago, Amara's mother had died in a tragic accident. Her father, a kind but struggling man, fell into depression and disappeared one day, leaving Amara with nothing but a small backpack and a stuffed toy. The foster system failed to find her, and soon she learned to hide, because being taken meant being separated from the only memory she had of her family. Across the street stood a tall glass building owned by Dominic Hayes, a self-made millionaire who had everything money could buy: cars, penthouses, and fame. But he had no empathy. He was known for saying things like, "Poor people just don't try hard enough." To him, success meant superiority. One cold evening, as Dominic left his office late, he noticed a small figure under a flickering lamp. It was Amara, asleep on the bench, her arms wrapped tightly around her stuffed bear. He frowned. "Another runaway," he muttered, disgusted. He told his driver to keep going, but that night, something about her face haunted him. He tried to sleep in his luxurious bed, but the image of her tiny body shivering in the dark kept flashing before his eyes. For the first time in years, Dominic couldn't silence his conscience. The next morning, Dominic returned to the park, curious and restless. Amara was there again, awake this time, sitting quietly with her bear. Her eyes were tired but calm, the kind of calm born from too much pain. "Why are you here?" he asked coldly, standing tall in his $1,000 suit. Amara looked up at him, unsure whether to answer. "I'm waiting for my daddy," she whispered softly. Dominic frowned. "Your father? You mean he left you here?" She nodded. "He said he'd come back when he found a job. But that was weeks ago. He just needs time." Those words pierced something deep inside Dominic, a memory he had buried long ago. He too had once been a poor boy, with a father who left to find work and never came back. His mother had worked herself sick trying to raise him. The difference was that Dominic had turned his pain into pride, swearing never to be weak again. Still, his pride cracked when Amara coughed. She hadn't eaten properly in days. He bought her a sandwich, but when he handed it to her, she said, "Thank you, sir. But can you save half? For when Daddy comes back." Dominic's throat tightened. This child, with nothing, still held hope. Over the next few days, he began to visit her quietly, sometimes bringing food, sometimes just watching. He learned she spent her days at the public library, reading books about families and dreams. He saw how polite she was to everyone, even when ignored. Then one day, Dominic asked his assistant to run a background check, not out of malice, but desperation. He needed to know if her father was alive. The results crushed him. Amara's father had died 3 weeks earlier, from a heart attack at a construction site. No one had told her. Dominic sat alone in his office, staring at the file, tears filling his eyes. He had always believed emotions were weakness, but this was unbearable. When he finally went to the park that night, Amara was humming a lullaby her mother used to sing. He sat beside her, silent. "Amara," he said softly, his voice trembling, "your daddy loved you very much. He wanted to come back, but he couldn't." Amara looked at him with wide eyes, her lips trembling. "You mean he's gone?" Dominic nodded slowly. The little girl buried her face in her bear and sobbed, her small body shaking. Dominic held her as she cried, something he hadn't done for anyone in decades. And for the first time, the arrogant millionaire cried too. His tears weren't for guilt or pity, they were for the boy he once was. and for the little girl who reminded him what it meant to feel human again. From that night onward, Dominic's life changed completely. He took Amara into his care, legally becoming her guardian. The tabloids went wild. Millionaire adopts homeless girl. But for Dominic, it wasn't about image. It was redemption. He enrolled Amara in school, hired a tutor, and made sure she had everything she needed. But Amara, humble and kind, didn't want luxury. All she asked was that Dominic keep a small corner of his garden as her park, where she could sit under a tree and talk to her father. Every evening, Dominic would join her there, listening as she shared stories from her day. Slowly, the cold businessman learned to smile again, not for profit, not for pride, but for peace. Amara had given him something he didn't know he'd lost, a heart that could feel love. Months passed and Amara began to flourish. She was top of her class, painting, writing stories, and inspiring everyone she met. Dominic, once obsessed with money, started funding shelters and programs for homeless children. His company began a charity in Amara's name, the Amara Foundation, dedicated to helping kids who'd lost their families. One afternoon, while they were sitting in the garden, Amara looked up and asked, "Mr. Dominic, do you think my daddy can see me from heaven?" Dominic smiled gently. "I think he's proud of you. I think he's smiling right now." Then she said something that melted his heart completely. "And I think my daddy sent you to me, so I wouldn't be alone." Dominic couldn't hold back the tears. He realized that money, power, and success meant nothing compared to the miracle of compassion this little girl had brought into his life. Years later, when Amara graduated college with honors, she dedicated her speech to the man who found me sleeping in a park and taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about love. Dominic stood in the crowd, tears streaming down his face. The once arrogant millionaire, who once looked down on the poor, now knew the truth. Sometimes the richest hearts come from the humblest places, and in that moment, as Amara hugged him and whispered, "Thank you, Dad," he knew he had finally become the man he was always meant to be.